All I wanna get is a little bit closer. All I wanna know is, can you come a little closer? Here comes the breath before we get a little bit closer. Here comes the rush before we touch. Come a little closer. The doors are open, the wind is really blowing. The night sky is changing overhead. It's not just
We're ready? Hi, Sarah.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
How are you doing?
I'm okay. I'm a little bit like jet lagged a little bit.
Right. So, how's been the reception for Alternativ so far?
It's been excellent. Everything is going really positively so far, and we feel really happy. Yeah,
Okay,
we can't
great.
complain.
So, we're gonna talk about the record.
Okay.
And go through the songs.
Okay,
So, we're gonna start with the opener, which is called Closer.
closer. Yeah,
So, you press play, and then it's like, wow, that's a new Chicken and Sarah.
yeah. We wanted the song to be really surprising, sound totally different, and I wanted it to be a really big statement for the album. And anybody that was a fan before, or even maybe not a fan of the band, I wanted them to really know, okay, this is like a big step, it's something new, and it's really confident, like bold,
Yeah.
like a fun song.
Is it to you a sort of tribute to your influences from the 90s? I know you love like Cyndi Lauper.
Sure, yeah. I mean, we talk a lot about the bands that influenced us growing up. They made significant impressions on us as kids, but also probably, the way that I see songs and structures and dynamics and all of that. So, like Madonna and Cyndi Lauper, and even for me, like, Closer, I like to almost think of it like when Bruce Springsteen was like my favorite growing up, but I really loved like Nebraska and Darkness on the Edge of Town and The River and like more of the like dark stuff. When he put out Born in the USA, it's like so different, right? Like Born in the USA, Dancing in the Dark, like those songs for someone who was listening to like Nebraska.
It sounded like a dance.
Oh yeah, it sounded like a dance record. It sounded crazy. Now it's like classic Bruce Springsteen, but back then it was such a big change. And in a way, I wanted to be able to have that moment for Tegan and Sara. Like, we know that people are used to hearing us sound a certain way, but we wanted to be able to make an aesthetic change, but people eventually would think like, oh, these are the best songs they've written, but not be held back by guitars or whatever.
Okay. On Goodbye Goodbye, we can see another change, which is more lyrical. It's
Sure.
a departure,
Yeah.
lyrically speaking, from your previous work.
Right. For me, it's like a very simple, straightforward song. I tend to write songs that the lyrics are a little bit more complicated, or maybe poetic, or a little bit more, a little bit more vague. Like, you know what I'm talking about. But with this album, I really tried to be as straightforward as possible. Not because I didn't want it to have the same depth or the same intensity, but because sometimes I think when using metaphor and allegory and all of this stuff, it's like that can be a bit like hiding, like that's sort of putting up a bit of a defense or a mask of some sort. But I didn't want to be like that with this record. I really wanted to be super straightforward. I wanted the lyrics to still be really broad and universal, like so that people they wouldn't feel like it was a narrow experience that only sometimes you can understand. But it was nerve-wracking to sing so clearly about things that I was feeling. That was hard, but I loved Goodbye Goodbye. It was a good one.
Even in the tone, it's different. Like the theme is still heartbreak and
Sure.
but
Yeah.
it sounds more like empowering.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, well, this record is sort of if Sainthood, our last record, was sort of about someone rejecting you or not wanting you, or even that martyred kind of waiting and longing, this record is like, so that it's over. This is like post breakup. It's kind of the angry reflecting stage where you're sort of torn up about it, you know, but you also are kind of like moving on.
The next song, I Was a Fool, I read that Tegan said she wanted to write something like Rihanna's Umbrella for that one.
Oh yeah, that's what she said, yeah.
So, and that's the demo you sent to the producer of the record.
Yeah, Closer and I Was a Fool were both songs that we sent out to producers, and it was more of a piano ballad, you know, just really simple, like an acoustic guitar and some piano. That riff, the da-na-na-na-na, like that whole thing was in there. But I really was excited to turn it into something more of like a up-tempo ballad, you know. I didn't want to have it be too stripped down. But I think it's great. I never heard Rihanna, but I always joked with Tegan that it could be like a Roxette song. You remember that band Roxette? Listen to your heart.
Yeah.
You know, like it's very. I don't know. It's sentimental. It's not hiding behind any coolness. You know, like this is like a really straightforward song.
What's the next one about? I'm Not Your Hero.
I'm Not Your Hero. I'm Not Your Hero. I wrote about, you know, reflecting on when I was younger, when I was a teenager, and I didn't totally know what my future was going to look like, being gay and being, you know, living in the 90s and being a teenager. You know, it wasn't like it is today where I just thought, oh, I'll just have a girlfriend and my life will be normal, whatever that means to people. And I was isolated in a lot of ways, and I didn't necessarily have a lot of people to look up to. Like, I had lots of support from my friends and from my family, but I didn't really know any other adult gay people who, like, had a life like how I imagine my life being. So I was thinking a lot about that and how, you know, it's difficult. Once we started to have a career, I felt like being very visible and talking about being gay and also talking about being, you know, not wanting to be held back because I was gay. I didn't like that in society people would say to us, oh, well, you're a gay band, so then only gay people can like you. And I found that really offensive and reductive, and I thought, like, I hated that. I thought, like, being straight doesn't hold you back from anything. And as a gay person, I like straight people's music. I like straight people's writing. Why can't straight people like my writing or my music, you know? So the song is kind of about all of those things, like about feeling like you become somebody who speaks out about yourself, and that sometimes what you say isn't what other people, you know, agree with.
So is that who you are referencing to when you say I'm not their hero?
I think I mean sometimes that it's the people who. It's not necessarily the villains, like the people who I know are against me. Sometimes it's the people who are supposed to be my allies, you know, the people who I should have been close to, or the people I should have been able to look up to. I knew that I wasn't looking up, I couldn't look up to them, and then in a lot of ways, I know that there have been times in our career where just because you're gay or just because you have the same sort of politics as we do, doesn't necessarily mean you identify with us or like us, you know, so yeah, it's complicated.
So you just passed in France, like last week. Did
Yeah.
you hear about
Yes,
that?
I've been following all the marches and protests and everything like that in France. Yeah.
Do you think that debating about it is kind of dividing people, or is it at the contrary, like are people getting together around it?
You know, I think that there has to be dialogue and there has to be conversation, and you know, when same-sex marriage passed in Canada, people debated it all the time, talked about it. Some people so, you know, angry, and then other people that were so adamant that this had to happen. And I'll tell you, in the last 10 years, it's made no difference negatively in Canada. It's like it's become a part of just tolerance and acceptance in the country, and you know, as someone who I never saw myself as getting married, not because I was gay, but just because marriage wasn't a value that I had in my life. But always say to people, you know, like I never imagined myself getting married, but it really made me angry that I wasn't allowed to get married. Doesn't mean I want to get married, but I should be allowed to decide that for myself. And so it's become, you know, a really important cause, and I think that it's so significant whether you believe in marriage or not. It should be something that I can make my own choice about. And so it's good to see all the countries that are now coming aboard. And, you know, I think that there will be a time where all of this will seem so just, people won't believe that this was such a big deal, you know. And I think now is the time to put yourself on the right side of history, because people will look back and just be horrified at it, you know. And so I always tell my friends who are unsure or closeted or these things, I'm like, this is the time to get on the right side, because you want to be with the movement that changed things, not hiding in the closet, you know.
Yeah. How about adoption? Because the French conservatives are really worried about gay people raising children.
Yeah.
Saying it's
I mean, it's so deeply offensive, and it's you know, the reality is that, you know, gay parents can be just as good of parents as anybody. And the idea that in this world where so many people don't have families or don't have kids, that anybody would be able to dictate whether or not two loving people can raise a child, when the world is filled with people raising children that they didn't want or are not capable of raising them. You know, this is deeply offensive. This is adoption and gay people having rights to have children. That is more offensive to me than marriage equality. It's like the fact that anybody would ever tell me that I can't raise a child with the person that I love it's deeply offensive.
Let's go to Drove Me Wild.
Drove Me Wild was a song that Tegan worked on with these guys Sultan and Ned. They're sort of like a dance group, and they had sent us some really cool instrumental tracks, and so Tegan wrote some top lines for them, and we just ended up really liking the track and really enjoying the melody and kind of like the metaphor and stuff like that. So we decided to cut it and see if it would make a cool album cut, and it did. And it's really fun, and it's totally different tonal song than anything I think we've ever done before. Like, it really has this sort of like young, happy carefreeness to it. Like, it's not like a super deep, sad song. Like, it really is just like kind of like a flirtatious, happy song, you know, which I don't think we have a lot of those in our catalog, so it's nice.
The next one was written with Jack Antonoff
Yeah.
from Fun, and it's called How Come You Don't Want Me?
Yeah, Jack's a good friend, and we joked around about maybe working together and working on some songs, and he sent me some tracks, not necessarily for our own record, just in general, just songwriting for other people, and he sent me this instrumental for this song, and I thought it was great, and I started writing a song, almost like not for my band, like just writing a song almost like for like a teen pop star could sing or something, you know, like something that was kind of sassy.
Yeah.
Like,
Would you say it's cheesy?
well, it's cheesy, like, see, I don't think it's cheesy when I'm singing it and I'm like really giving it. I'm like, it's a torch song, you know, like it doesn't feel cheesy when you're singing it. But when I was writing the lyrics, I was like, oh my god, this is crazy. Like the part about like, how come you don't want to win me now, or why don't you want to win me now? Why don't you want to show me off? Like, it sounded so cheesy, but the truth is that it's like, I've felt that way about people. Like, where, like, someone rejects you and you think, like, how come you don't want to, how could you break up with me? Like, you don't want to show me off? Like, what do you mean? I'm like, what the hell? So, I knew I was onto something, even though my instinct was to, like, to be like, oh, that's too straightforward. It's, like, too cheesy, too needy or something. Like, ugh. But I feel like when I sing it, like when I really own it, no, it's not cheesy. I don't care what anyone says.
Like 5 years ago, would you have believed that you were gonna write that song?
You know, I think that what's interesting is that I remember when I was writing the Con and I thought those songs were so cheesy. You know, because for me on So Jealous, the record before, I was writing songs like Walking with a Ghost. What the hell does that mean? Nobody, you know, like the song is so vague, like lyrically, it's just, you can't, there's nothing, you know, it's cool, it's a cool word, it's a cool phrase, you know, like these types of things, but like, all of the personal stuff was like very veiled, you know. So for me to then to write songs like I Was Married or Back in Your Head or Relief Next to Me, those songs felt so cheesy because I was like, oh boohoo, confessional, like writing these songs. They resonated so much with our audience that I started to realize that sometimes you have to bare yourself and be sort of embarrassing and cheesy to really connect with people. And you can be cool and you can write songs that are sort of aloof and like, you know, impenetrable and whatever. But like I get more satisfaction out of singing the stuff that's really from the heart. And so 5 years ago, I don't know if I would have been able to write the songs that I wrote for this record, but I will say that I had already moved into a place in my life where I realized that it was braver to just be cheesy and say the truth and be honest than to write something super cool and hip and distant, you know?
Yeah. I don't know if you thought about it, but it probably resonates more with people who doesn't speak English in the first place, like who English is not their
because it's more straightforward. Yeah.
It's like simpler words.
Yeah, well, that, you know, like I think about too, like a lot of the artists that I've liked and the trajectory of their careers, and like when I think of like artists like Patsy Cline. And you know, some of Bruce Springsteen's like sort of mid catalog work and stuff like that, Cyndi Lauper, and like you know, classic songs like that I grew up on, like Roy Orbison, and like you know, God, I don't know, like old country stuff, the Supremes. That stuff is so straightforward. It's like there is no joking around. Like it's just like I was crying over you, like. You know, it's the most plain turns of phrases and whatever. But the voice, like Dolly Parton, you know, like the warble of the voice and the way it's used is more significant than writing something really poetic and complicated, you know, lyrically.
So we're gonna go fast.
Yeah.
So the next one, I Couldn't Be Your Friend, is funny too because it has really depressing lyrics and a really poppy production.
I know, we really liked that. I wanted them to be like, you know, here's the song and here's the lyrics, you know. I want them to be totally different from each other. But then it's the combination that I think we can strip it down and make it so sad, but then you can have it be this really big, bombastic, like anthemic production that makes people be like, yeah, I'm having the time of my life, but it's like the saddest song. Yeah.
Love They Say. So apparently that was a song that you were asked to write for the soundtrack?
Yeah, Tegan initially wrote the song for a soundtrack, and we thought it was super cool. Again, like super straightforward, you know, just like very transparent lyrics, you know, like just straightforward, but we thought it was a great melody, and so we ended up recording it, and it didn't get used for the soundtrack, so we recut it in the studio with Greg Kirsten and used some of the original ideas that we had from the original version. But yeah, it's a great song. It's a great song.
Now I'm All Messed Up.
Now I'm All Messed Up started as a piano ballad, and again, it was supposed to be like a real torch song, like something really sad. Like I really imagined, it kind of went into a different direction in the studio, but just as a piano ballad, I was like, I want tears, I want people to feel, I want to feel like they have their hearts ripped out. Like that's who relates to this song. You are at rock bottom. You are at your lowest if this is connecting to you. I really wanted to go to that place energetically.
Okay.
Yeah.
And record closes with Shock Your System.
Yeah.
Which has, in my opinion, strong Drive influence. The movie Drive, like the soundtrack.
Sure,
really
yeah.
reminded me of this.
Yeah. It's like, it was supposed to sort of be like a, when I was building the production for it, you know, and I was building the orchestral breakdowns, the like, dun-dun, 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 like all that stuff. I wanted it to sort of be like, I was thinking of the 90s and how a lot of songs would start really big and then they would break down into these, they would sort of, I don't know, they would, what's the word I'm looking for? They would just, you would deconstruct all the instrumentation until there was almost nothing but a vocal and something, you know? Like, I remember that from the 90s. And then you would have these explosive B choruses. And so I was really trying to build an instrumental that way. But I wanted the vocals to sort of float over top of it, which I think is reminiscent of some of the songs that are on the Drive soundtrack. You know, they just sort of stay in this one linear kind of place, melodically and whatever. So, yeah, but I thought it was a cool song. I didn't know if it would really fit with the rest of the record. It's pretty dark. There's definitely no lightness in that song. but I think
a good closer.
it makes a really good closer. Yeah, it really does. Yeah, like if Closer is here, Shock is definitely here, you know. So, yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Do you have anything else to add?
No, I mean, that was great. We really covered the whole record. Great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I can't let you go without asking you when
Okay.
you're gonna play in Paris next.
Well, we're hoping to be back in June for a proper tour.
Okay.
So, yeah, so you can expect us then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Headlining tour?
Yes, absolutely. Or
Okay.
festivals too. We don't know yet exactly, but yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Thank you
Sarah.
very much. Thanks a lot.